Ma'am Depi Gopinath ma'am, the recording has started. You can
Okay,
introduce our worthy resource person.
okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Majid. Uh, Very good morning to all dignitaries and participants. It is my pleasure to introduce eminent scientist Dr. Anil Kumar, Director ICAR-Central Institute for Women in Agriculture, Bhubaneswar, to this 21 days training program. Prior to his talk, I am narrating his brief profile. Sir has completed his PhD in livestock production management from Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi in the year 2002. His area of interest include livestock policy and women empowerment, time use study and sectoral participation of men and women in agriculture, gender and geography, application of GIS and big data in social science research, agricultural history and plant genetic resources. Sir's important achievements include introduction of new plant species named Chaya, a new forage plant in the year 2006 through NBPGR following laid down procedure. This plant has potential to become an important feed forage crop in India to address the nutritional security of human and animals. Secondly, Sir has characterized Bandalkhandi goats native to the region and has been studied since 2002. Sir has popularized area-specific mineral mixture and complete feed block for balanced feeding of livestock in the year 2008. The two technologies were demonstrated and popularized in selected villages of Bundelkhand region. Other technologies developed include on-farm mechanized urea treatment process during threshing and technology for processing of fish waste into value-added product, fish silage, and standardizing methodologies for it. Sir has prepared policy paper on work workers and counting women in agriculture in the year 2018. Looking into history, Sir has done a historical finding of the business of ballad grass at Jhansi, India during 1880 to 1945 by J.H. Abbott and his family. Sir has greatly contributed to value chain model villages by developing a model village at Giringaput village in Khurda district under the project Technology Application and Gender Mainstreaming in Agriculture for Developing a Model Village. Regarding publications, Sir has authored 47 research papers in reputed journals. Sir has been honored with various awards, among them the prestigious Boycast Fellowship by DST Government of India to work as visiting faculty at University of Gulf, Canada is one among them. Sir has received advanced training at International Research Center for Dryland Agriculture, Aleppo, Syria, on dryland agriculture and livestock production in the year 2011. With this brief introduction, let's welcome Sir for enlightening us with his presentation on mainstreaming and empowering women in a livestock sector for livelihood improvement in India. Welcome you, sir.
Uh, Thank you, Devi, Madam Devi.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
I'm sharing my presentation now.
Okay.
Here.
Okay, sir.
Is my presentation visible?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Please.
sir.
Yeah. I was given the topic empowering mainstreaming and empowering women in agriculture, but I thought I should give something new to the participants because I find there is a larger gathering. About, say, yesterday I saw 122 plus participants were there. Good morning to all from ICAR-Central Institute for Women in Agriculture. I shall be talking about participation and contribution and men and women in livestock sector in India. Before going, can I know how much time do I have for this presentation?
Sir, you have about 1 hour,
One
and
hour.
within that 1 hour, you would want to give 7 minutes for the question answer session at the end.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Before going into the presentation, I shall just give a brief about the institute, ICR, Central Institute of Women in Agriculture. This institute, I think this is only of its kind in the whole of Asia, devoted to gender research in agriculture. And this was conceptualized way back in 1996. This institute was established in 96 and it was pioneer at that time. Even now, there is no institutionalized research on gender in agriculture per se in any part of although there are centers for women studies in different universities, but exclusively devoted to gender research, there is no institute existing as of now. So we have a unique institute, but number of personnel at this institute is a bit low, depending on the requirement that this institute has. We have 20 scientists in place, but we have an extension of this institute in the form of ECRIP, and we have 13 ECRIP centers all over India, spread over 12 centers, spread over 13 centers, spread over 12 states in India. So, giving this brief, I shall go directly into the presentation because the time is limited. I thought I had 2 hours, but Mr. Majid told me only one. I would like to curtail some of the aspects that I have brought in for the participants. We would like to discuss, and I would like to travel through some of the few questions that I have. That we have who we are working for. We as a livestock scientist are working with livestock species, and livestock species is a tool for us. The larger question is who we are working for. How many of them are there? Are we working for the livestock, or are we working for the society at a large? What is our larger goal for as a livestock scientist or a livestock researcher? How many of them are there? Then the question also is that how many men and women participate in agriculture and livestock activities? You may be coming across over your study period or during your course of employment, these many numbers are participating in agriculture or livestock sector. But what are the sources for this? How much time they devote for the livestock activity, being in the livestock sector? Then what is the contribution and men and women in agriculture and livestock sector? Do we have an authentic data for it, or what are the sources for it? And then I would also like you to travel through the ownership pattern of livestock combination. What combination of livestock, cattle, buffalo are being reared by people in India, especially in rural India? Say, I would also like you to, all the participants, to conduct to some of the questions that we often come across in literature or in newspaper also. I would not read all the questions, but briefly, there was a report by BAD Center for Barley and Acid. Women already constitute about 65% of total agricultural workforce in the country. What does this statement mean? As it is printed, women already constitute 65% of total workforce. Means if there are 100 workers, 65 are women. Is this true? Can we take this as a truth because someone has already published it? Or the FAO report, which has been very widely quoted, but misquoted, I would say misquoted. It says that women produce between 60 and 80% of food produced in most of the developing countries. Can we take this as a face value because someone has already said it? We would discuss it in the later slide. I would just request someone to concentrate on this. Then point number 6, there was a report in the planning by Planning 2002, and even this report says that women constitute 70% of the total labor force in livestock farming, 71%, and in dairying, 75 million women are engaged in dairy sector. This is in the Planning Commission report, and while I tried to trace back where from this data has come, I found it. This data has been coming from way back from 8th plan period, and very recently in 2019 I saw this statement being repeated by Honorable Agriculture Minister because someone has given it to the minister. Can we take it as a granted that women constitute 71% of the total labor force in the livestock farming? Is it true? We need to question these because only truth can prevail. And then there was a report from Oxfam, women cultivators and agricultural laborers perform about 75% of all agricultural activities. Even these statements, then another statement, women average contribution in farm production is 50 to 60%. What I mean to say that there has been, and last, the 11th one, women do 80% of the farmer. Does it mean that this statement implies that women contribute only 20%? Women do 80% of the farmer. This is a standalone statement. So we need to be very careful about what we write and what we say. And not because someone else has said it. Therefore, we need to answer what are the sources of information and how many of them are there and what they do, what do they do. There are often, very often, and we at Central Institute for Women in Agriculture, we get, even when the parliament is in session, every week we get one or two questions either from direct from Agriculture Ministry or Women and Child Development on women's data and participation, contribution, everything else. So the majority of the scientists or majority of the workers, even agriculture workers, quote census data. But the primary objective of census was to count the head counts, and as an add-on, the workers were data on workers were added on it. The next very important source is the NSSO, National Statistical Office, now it is being called. The 68th round was a very comprehensive survey, and then for our subject area, for us researchers in livestock sector, I would urge upon the participants, everyone, to see the land and livestock holding survey, which was released recently, 2-3 years back, but this data relates to 2013. And then there is a very recent report of time use study 2019, but the report was released in September 2020. So these are some of the sources which are important for us to know how many of them are there, what they do. These are they then. I said based on the 68th round, these reports are published. This is the Census of India website, and these reports take consideration. These tools, NSSO takes into consideration the National Industrial Classification regarding the workers. And very recently, time use study has been released, and it is based on a survey of over 5 lakh people. And for a rural area, 272 close to 3 lakh people were interviewed for generating this report. But unfortunately, for this time use study report, this is a report of over 2,000 pages. But this contains agriculture only once in whole of the 2,000 reports. But we got hold of this data, the unit level data, which is over 1 crore data. 10.6 million data records are there. And based on this unit level data, we have analyzed it and then culled out the information regarding participation, time use and contribution, which I will be sharing in my subsequent slides. Now, as I said, census exercise and census are the two important sources. Census takes narrow definition of agriculture. When you look into the census data, it says only about the cultivators, how many cultivators are there and how many agricultural laborers are there. It remains silent about how many persons, men or women, are engaged in livestock sector or fishery or forestry or other sectors. It remains silent. Therefore, the census takes data, gives data on agriculture in narrow sense. Whereas the NSSO takes a broad definition of agriculture and includes everything, including animal husbandry, forestry, fishing. This slides I will not go into detail. The census population, all India, rural, urban, male, female agency are there. And the second table gives the number of households identified by each of the agencies, census, NSO 68 round, and socio-economic and caste survey 2012, and NSO 17th round, and then livestock census 2012. These are the urban. I have just compiled it for whenever you write your paper or popular article, these data will help you in building up the discussion. I would not describe all the aspects, but I would emphasize that in rural area, this table relates to rural area. 55%. This is based on 68th round NSS servers. 58% households are engaged in agriculture activities. Means if there are 100 households in rural area, 55% depend on agriculture for their livelihood. Remaining 44% depend on non-agriculture household. For many of researchers, for many of who are not from agriculture background or for not from rural area, this remains becomes very shocking to my colleagues also when I say that only 55-57% households are engaged in rural area. Because as a perception we understand that whenever we say rural area, it means all people would be engaged in agriculture activity. Not so. And of this, the recent time use study, we have found that 57% households are engaged in agriculture activity, and if there are 100 people in a rural area, 28% work in agriculture or livestock sector, including other things. It means if there are if there are 100 household, if there is a household, not all person in a agriculture household would be working, because there would be children, there would be elderly persons who may not be working. Therefore, of the 100 persons in the rural area, only about 28 persons work in agriculture, and these 28 persons live in 57% of the households. This I wanted to emphasize, but this table has a lot many other information which you may understand, and or if you are not able to decipher, you can call me, and then I can explain you at later time, because we have limited time and I want to rush you through the data I wanted to share. In the last line, I had given the total number of persons population, male, female. This is the absolute number derived from the NSSO and census data. Not going into the detail, I would just emphasize that as a worker, there is the NSSO survey defines worker in a very strict sense, and there is definition of worker, and based on the definition of worker, many persons are excluded who are working who are engaged in the agriculture activity. For example, women are engaged in agriculture, in livestock management activities, but they do not qualify to be a worker as per the definition of NSSO. Therefore, they are excluded from this data set, and therefore the actual representation of women in livestock sector is not reflected as a worker. Therefore, this timing study, which I shall be discussing subsequently, is important. This is based on NSSO 68th round. So these many are the workers, and you can calculate the percentage out of it on the last time that is given. Then comes participation, time use, and contribution in agriculture and livestock based on time use study. This is the report I want to emphasize. As I said, this report contains about 1 crore records, and having the not background, but having learned the Stata software, we tried to analyze the data. We wrote the codes de novo for this report, and the unit level data from which this 1 crore records from which this report, 2001 page report was developed. We wrote the codes de novo at our CIVA, and then recreated the tables for this report. Then we understood that our codes are perfect, and then from this unit level data, we culled out those who are engaged in crop sector, livestock sector, agriculture sector, forestry, and everything. And we found that there is a wealth of information in this unit level data. Based on this data, this analysis, what we have found that regarding participation, subsequently I would also differentiate between the participation and contribution, because many times participation is being considered as contribution. So subsequently I will describe, but as a participation, if there are 100 persons in rural area, if there are 100% in rural area, out of the 100% males in rural area in India, only 34.59% males work in agriculture. Not worker, are engaged in agriculture or allied sectors. For women, if there are 100 women in rural area, 22% participate. I qualify the participants. Here I do not say the workers, because when we say workers, it will take the definition of NSSO and it becomes confusing. Even though these men or women, this data contains worker or non-workers as per the definition of NSSO, but they are all engaged in agricultural activities for sometimes or other time. What we have found that in Himachal Pradesh, 46% of the female in rural area are participate in agricultural activities. For Gujarat, I saw a large number of participants for this training program are from Gujarat and Rajasthan also. I have seen Tamil Nadu also. In Tamil Nadu, the female participation in agriculture is close to 20%. For Himachal Pradesh, it is highest in India. In Gujarat, it is 34%, and about 10 states, 12 states have 30% and above. And this table was sorted based on the women's participation, and these are the 10 states which have the highest participation of female, and these are the 10 from bottom up, 10 states where the participation. You can see that in Bihar, the participation of female is very low. Why this is so? Because there is already a huge population place. There is a huge population density is very high. So whatever the work in agriculture sector is there, they are all being grabbed by the male, and the agriculture has a limited agriculture operation can be made on a limited land area, and the land area is limited, and the number of persons are more. It is always the male who takes precedence in working on the agriculture sector. Then this map shows the participation of male and female in the different states of India. What we see in Himachal Pradesh, the participation is highest, and for male, the participation in agriculture. This is not comparison between male and female. It is just a standalone. For male, the participation in these states or union territories are highest in Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, highest, and then for female, the participation is highest in Himachal Pradesh. Now coming to crop sector, not going detail into it because most of us are from livestock sector, but just to have any information, male participation in crop sectors. Crop sector as a whole. The earlier slide I saw included agriculture and allied sector, includes agriculture, animal husbandry, forestry, fishery, everything as a broad definition of agriculture. But for only crop sector, the participation of, if there are 100 male in rural area, 28% participate in agriculture, and it is only 13% who participate in crop sector. Again, the highest is in Nagaland, where the female participation is highest in crop production. This slide shows the participation of female in crop production sector. In crop production, you can see that Chhattisgarh, Telangana, Maharashtra, then Arunachal Pradesh participation is high. This is the tribal region. Chhattisgarh is mostly tribal population, and the participation is very high. As a perception, we know it, but from data, the recent data that it has shown, it has come out very nicely. What we have to perceive as participation of women in agriculture. And then coming to livestock production, as I said earlier in my first, second, third slide, 71% participate in agriculture, 71% labor force is contributed by women. This data is not based on facts, not based on truth, because maybe a few reports over there and they were extrapolated for whole of the India. The participants, if there are 100 male in rural area, 10.8% male participate in animal management activity. For female, it is 10.69. It means in livestock sector, the participation of male and female are close to equal, barabar hai, are almost equal. Whereas the participation of female in livestock production activity is highest in Himachal Pradesh. Himachal Pradesh, Rajasthan, Uttarakhand, Haryana, Ladakh, Jammu Kashmir, the participation is very high for these states. It means there are 100 females, 39, 40 female take care of animals in their household. But as a worker, this data is not being shown here because they do not many, as per the definition of worker, they do not qualify to be worker. But they are engaged, they participate, they take care of workers. And these data, these participation do not come out in a larger in the society, in the publication, in the newspaper reports, and therefore the joy of women gets relegated to secondary nature. So this is the second column says about the lowest participation in of women in livestock production activities. In my presentation, in my lecture note, I have given the details for all the states and union territories of India, and you can find the participants can find the situation for their states in the lecture note that I have given, which will be shared by the organizers. Then for livestock production participation, again, as I said, the participation is very high in Himachal Pradesh. Not going into detail, then participation, time use and contribution. Three things are there. Then if suppose a wall is to be constructed, wall is to be made in a house, and it takes 1 day, and 2 persons are working to make to construct a wall in a house in 1 day. One person work for 2 hours, and then another person work for 8 hours, and then the wall is made in the whole day. So when we say that, what is the participation of first person? Participation of first person and second person both is 50%. But when we say what is the contribution of first person in making this wall, You may all agree that this is only 20%, and for the second person it is 80%. But for participation, how many persons participated in making this wall? 50, the first person's participation is 50%, second participation is 50%. But when participation is qualified with time use, then we arrive at contribution. And this final point is most often overlooked by the writers or researchers or even policymakers. And most of the time participation is being said at contribution, and participation and contribution is very often used interchangeably, which is not correct. This slide shows the participation, the time used. I will not read out all the data for it, but for livestock, those who participate in livestock management activities, for each person, they devote for whole of the India, for the average of India is women, those women who participate in animal husbandry activities, they devote 129 minutes per day. And this is based on record, the observation of 2,27,112 persons from rural area. So there has been no bigger survey than this for these records, and this is being shared for the first time. For men, those who participate in animal husbandry activities, they devote each day 147 minutes. It means for women it is 2 hours, 16 to 2, almost 2 plus hours they devote each day. The variation may be high and low, but for whole of the India, the average is 129 minutes. For highest is in Andhra Pradesh, it is 156 minutes. Close to 2.5 hours is being devoted by women in animal husbandry activities in Andhra Pradesh. For each state, I have given the data in my lecture note, and you can see and then build your discussion or based on those data. Then participation qualified with time use, we have arrived at contribution. If 100 man hours are 100 human hours are required in agricultural activity, we have found that 69% is contributed by men and 30% is contributed by women. So therefore, we should be very clear, even though it is being said by FAO or any other agency, we should be very clear that the women's contribution in agriculture is only 30% and men's contribution in agriculture is 69%. For Himachal Pradesh, this is the picture is different. For Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Goa, the females' contribution in agriculture sector as a whole, including livestock, fishing, forestry, everything, it is for Himachal Pradesh it is 57%, for Uttarakhand it is 56%. So some of these states have very high contribution for women in agriculture. It is true. And then for crop sector, the contribution of female is only 27%. For male, it is 72%. But for us livestock researchers, this is the map for the contribution of male and female. For livestock researchers, as I said, the participation was close to 50-50 between male and female. And when it is qualified with, there is a process methodology how we had calculated it. It is not the right time. You can go through the paper that I submitted in Economic and Political Weekly. The contribution for male and female in animal husbandry sector, it is 54% for male, and for female it is 45%. Therefore, whatever the report says that women contribution in livestock sector is 71%, this is not based on fact. What would have happened, what I presume is, there might have been some reports, some study from these states, Himachal Pradesh, Rajasthan or other states. I presume it must be have from Himachal Pradesh, because I had seen a few decades back there was a report from Himachal Pradesh which said about the contribution of women in animal husbandry activities, and maybe this report was extrapolated for whole of the India. It was just said that women contribute 70% in animal husbandry sector. It is true for some of these states. For 8 or 9, for 8 states, the women's contribution in animal husbandry sector is more than male. These states are Tripura, Arunachal, Mizoram, Haryana, Uttarakhand, Himachal. These are the highest these states where contribution for women is more than male. And for these states, the contribution are very less. Say for Telangana, Goa, Chhattisgarh, in animal husbandry sector, it activities, the men's contribution is high, more, because if there are 100 human hours are required in animal management, only 17 hours are devoted by women in Telangana state. But there is a contrast in Andhra Pradesh. I saw the participation is higher. So concluding it, 45% of the labor force required in animal husbandry sector is contributed by women, and it is 54% by men. This is the slide shows the spatial distribution of the contribution. We see that Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, then Haryana, Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Arunachal Pradesh and Tripura. These states, the contribution are high, and some of these states have very low contribution by women in animal husbandry sectors. So I have given, when we are into gender research, we take into consideration both male and female. We are not, gender study does not mean studying only the issues of women. It also involves the studying the role that men play, and how men can facilitate more participation and contribution for women in agriculture. This is the slide which shows gives the data for all the states and union territories of India for contribution of men and women in agriculture and allied sectors. Then the question arises, if women contribute, say only 30%, 30% in agriculture and 70% is contributed by men. Are women sleeping? What do women do? What do they do? What do they do? वो करती क्या है? Are they sleeping? Where what are the activities where their time are spent? From this unit level data, from this 1 crore records, I had just called out for those who are engaged in agriculture activities only, men and women in agriculture activity, and this we got a beautiful result from this. What we found that, not going into the details, unpaid work, men devote for those men who are into agriculture, they devote only 1.4 hours per day in unpaid activity, and other activities it is 5.2 hours, and for female the unpaid activities is 4.8 hours per day. When we combine both this unpaid work and those engaged in agriculture activities, the working hours for women is 9.5 hours per day. For men it is 7.9 hours only. Therefore, women work 20% more time than men every day. So they do not have the time to participate in agricultural activities outside their home. They are bound in the household activity household chorus. Therefore, they are not able to participate meaningfully in the society, what the human potential that they have. And you can see this table, this row, that 3.2 times women work 3.2 times more than male in unpaid activities. What we see that in egalitarian societies of, if you see Norway, Sweden, the women's participation and contribution in society is huge, because the government takes care of the children who is born, and I say that besides the childbirth, everything else regarding a child work can be outsourced, and government has taken care of the child care facility. Therefore, women with the young children can leave their children in the daycare center and they are able to work. We have also in our place the Anganwadi centers, but these need to be strengthened. These need to be strengthened so that children are well taken care of, and the mothers would have the confidence to leave their children in these Anganwadi centers, and then the participation can increase. Even in rural area, in urban area also, I say that there are large number of, almost most of the women are well educated, but many women are not able to work outside their home because they have to take care of children. Had the government the place facility would have been available for these women, educated women who have money, they can work. But because there is no one to take care of their children, therefore they are not able to step out of their household, and many of them are voluntarily step back, even though have very good qualification, a very high qualification. I have seen women with very engineering degree leaving their job to take care of children only. So therefore, government has to come forward to take care of the children. Then only the women's participation can increase. This slide shows the pattern of time spent by men and women who are engaged in agriculture activity in rural area. Next slide shows this is in percentage. What we found that in first slide, only 13% of women's time are engaged in agriculture, and for men who are into agriculture, 24% time are engaged in agriculture. But see, this one, 23% of women's time are engaged in devoted for unpaid work. For men, it is only 3%. So here lies the difference between men and women, or which are barriers in participation of women in agriculture or livestock activity. I will make this chart for each of the state for livestock activities also, and we are working into it, and very soon in 1 or 2 months we will come out with a very good report of all India state wise, and then men and women wise also we can find out. Then in next 15 minutes I would devote another aspect of data of livestock ownership. There was a report in 2013. The survey was conducted in 2013, but the report came in, I think, in 2015, 16, somewhere 3-4 years later. Again, this report has some tables for us livestock scientists. But the beauty of this report lies in the unit level data. Get hold of this unit level data. If you have some if you are proficient in Stata, or even if you are not Stata, I would urge upon the young researchers to learn some software, Stata or GIS or something like that, and work on the unit level data. The wealth of information is there, and because the NSSO does not have the ability or the foresight to look into the livestock and the issues of livestock sector, what the data they have. Therefore, they are not able to come out with the report that are suited to us. They just give the report as a layman, and based on this report, this slide is there, the landless, marginal, small, medium farmer, and then how many average number of livestock owned by per thousand households are there. But this is just to scratch on the surface. If you go into deeper into the unit level data, which is not published in the report, we have worked on this unit level data also, and then when we found that this slide just shows that what percent of rural households are engaged in livestock activities. If there are 100 households in rural area, the 19th livestock census says that 32% households rear cattle. The NSSO 70th round unit level data, not published in the report. What we found that it is 30% household rear exclusively cattle. There are no other livestock species are there. But there were 32% household who reared cattle in combination with other livestock. They say they may be having one cattle, 2 buffaloes, or different combinations. Similarly, for a buffalo, in combination it is 19% exclusive rearing, no other species, 13% households. So this also is a very good pattern for discussion. What is the ownership pattern of livestock in the households in the rural area? This slide shows the livestock species owned by different social groups. When we are into livestock sector, we cannot escape or just escape away from the social stratification or the social connections with the livestock ownership. Because when you see who are the owners of the sheep, it are all the particular class, Gadaria caste. It may be called by different names in different states, but there is a caste connotation with the livestock rearing. Most of the places you will see the Gauda caste or the Yadavs, or they are into the buffalo rearing or cattle rearing. So we also need to look into these intersectionalities, what we call intersectionality. How the different state of society are the livestock ownership are there. What we have found that for scheduled tribe, 63% households own poultry. Similarly, for cattle, it is almost there is not much difference. But see, for pigs, it is scheduled tribe who are into the pig rearing. So when we are for as a livestock scientist or as a livestock policy maker, when we want to empower scheduled tribe, or we want to make policy for betterment of scheduled tribe, we should focus on the pig sector. We should focus on the poultry sector, because these are the livestock which they prefer to rear, or the circumstances make them to rear these kind of animals. Therefore, the government of India has program for scheduled caste and scheduled caste tribe, and scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, and therefore we also need to look into what kind of livestock is as a tool for us. So, using these tools, how these sections of the society can be empowered, we as a policy maker need to look into. We tried to look into the livestock, earlier livestock census, and then what we found that poultry per thousand human being, not all states or districts, we have mapped it for all districts of India, and we found that per thousand human being, these are the states or districts. This map is source for districts where the per thousand ownership of poultry is very high. So these are the districts where ownership is very high. For when you are trying to develop backyard poultry, go for these states. There cannot be a uniform policy for all districts of India in the poultry sector. This I am giving just for an example. We have done it for the dairy sector, for prioritization of districts for dairy sector in eastern India, covering 7 states which are under the PGREI program. So these are the districts. We can identify the districts. We have the list of these districts. Whenever the backyard poultry, sorry. Whenever we want to use backyard poultry as a tool for development of the society or people, we should go for these districts. We should focus on these districts only. There is no fun of going into the Hindi heartland of UP or Madhya Pradesh, because socially poultry in the rural area are still not acceptable. But these districts do not have any compulsion for this. And this slide shows the density of poultry per 1,000 square kilometer. Then the issues are also there. Wherever there is a poultry, the midday meal scheme, and then human nutrition, child nutrition issues are also there. Not going into the detail of it. This slide shows the average number of livestock species owned per household under different social categories. What we see that it is the OBC, the Garidia caste, which owns the sheep. So there is a caste connotation also. The social stratification which is there prevalent in the society, it is there, it is reflected as a perception we know, but as a data also it is there. For every household who rears poultry, for the scheduled tribe, there is on an average 7 to 9 poultry birds per household. Therefore, when we want to empower tribal persons in rural area, we should give them say about 10 to 15 to 18 chicks per lot, so that they can have say about 5 to 7 males will be sold off at the age of about 2.5 months, and then they will get 500 months each, and then the remaining birds 7 to 8 that will survive will continue to lay eggs, and then they will contribute to the income of this household, and then nutrition would also be taken care of. Not reading too much into this table, just saying that this slide, if the household who are owning livestock, number of livestock, if it is one, if the household own only one livestock, the percent household, there is 20% households who rear one livestock, and the total percent of livestock reared is 6.4%. Similarly, for if the household rears 1 to 2 cattle, there is 34% household who rear 1 to 2 cattle, number of livestock, and the total number of livestock reared in these households are 22%. Similarly, if you can combine, if 1 to 5, if I say that 89% of the households in rural area own 1 to 5 livestock, and it covers about 70% of all the livestock. So this table is also very important for cattle, buffalo, sheep, goat, and pig are there. Then there is all this table says that what combination of livestock and buffalo. Only cattle, no buffalo, 46% households a year. And this has all been derived from this unit level data of NSSO unit level data, not contained in this report. We have analyzed our own. And only buffalo, no cattle, 60% households have no cattle, but they rear only buffalo. And there are 16.9% household which rear both cattle and buffalo. Then all households 100% cattle with or without buffalo. There is 62.9%, and then only buffalo 32.9%. These are some of the interesting data that we have come out. Then two cattle, two buffalo, 12% household, and then it is 22%, 12% of the all cattle and buffalo. Then one cattle, one buffalo, 10.6% household. So different combination. Why are you giving this table? This is because we as a livestock scientist have technologies. We have very sophisticated technology. Yesterday, Honorable Vice Chancellor and other dignitaries also spoke about the sixth semen. Who are the segment of the society of the livestock owner who can take your technology. So therefore, the ability to grasp or absorb the technology depends on the economic worth or the sustainability or the capacity of the persons who own the livestock. So if there are big farmers, big livestock owners who are having 3 buffalo, 4 cattle, they can be receptive to the sixth semen. All may be receptive to the sixth semen, but it depends on the capacity of the or where we should target as a livestock policy maker or policy maker. Finally, this slide gives the scattered graph of different combination of cattle and buffalo and the households who rear them. Just a glimpse of based on the size of the circle also you can identify. 10.5% household have 1 cattle and 1 buffalo. 8.5% have households have 1 cattle and 2 buffalo. Similarly, as the number of buffalo increases, the number of cattle decreases. Say for this circle, 2.1% household have 1 cattle and 4 buffalo. So this is also beautiful graph. You can interpret in your own way to make policies for your own state. This can be generated. This is for all India picture, but this can also be generated for the state level. And this kind of analysis help us as a livestock scientist. Plus, our ultimate just concluding it. I have now 5 minutes. Just to make a conclusion that livestock is a tool for improving livelihood of people. We as a livestock scientist, our ultimate goal is to empower persons who are rearing animals, and we do it through technology, by increasing the efficiency of production, by decreasing the cost, and then making a congenial environment, say for the animals also, so that the productivity can increase. Therefore, we look and livelihood, just for giving us you a social science background. Livelihood has 3 important components: access to resources, increasing income, and reducing vulnerability. When we, as a livestock scientist, are working on technology aspect, we are striving hard so that their household assets in the form of livestock is increased. Say, Honorable Vice Chancellor said yesterday, if the sixth semen they had entered into MOU with some agency, I don't remember that name. If the household is having, say, earlier they would be having, if the 2 calves would be born, one would be male and female. Now, with the help of the technology, they would be having only 2 female calves. Each calf would cost about 40,000. Therefore, the capacity, the asset building is also through our efforts, through the technology that we generate. And then this leads to increasing income and reducing vulnerability. Vulnerability can be in the sense of, in case of emergency, if the households need some for education or medicine expenditure, they can sell off 1 or 2 goats. Or also the reducing vulnerability can be seen as if the household is having 5 to 7 eggs per day in their household, they would be retaining 2 to 3 eggs per day, and then I would stop here. I can just take 2 minutes more. This is the thing. There is equally need to focus on the human beings who operate these tools, and we need to know how many of them are there and what are their constraints and what circumstances they operate in. This is essential for uptake of the technology we as livestock researchers develop during our work. These are the female agricultural gods of ancient times from different societies or cultures. I will stop here. Thank you, and I invite any questions, suggestions, or further collaborations for the state participants. I stop
There are a few questions in the chat, sir.
here.
Could you read the chat so that there are questions?
What is the contribution of female for financial management, sir? Who is others in other livestock? Livestock maybe camel. Second question I'm taking up. Second question, livestock. Others may be other species, horse, mule, donkey, pony. Are there other groups? Then data. Voice is not clear. Difficult to understand. If any participant can raise question, I would be able to answer. If any participant can, you can
Sir,
unmute.
one more question has come, sir. How livestock is important for reducing vulnerability by Dr. Praveen Langari.
Vulnerability can be seen in different contexts. Say, in the times when climate is changing, vulnerability for as a general, as a crop sector only, we see that when there is drought and flood, we only see it is vulnerability. Even then, whenever there is calamities or vulnerability, climatic vulnerability is there. It is the livestock which is being reared in the most difficult societies, say in Arctic region or in the desert region. It is the livestock ownership which has provided the livelihood to the people, and this helps in reducing the vulnerability. I said that they are taking care of the climatic vulnerabilities through livestock, and just now I also said that the household vulnerabilities is also taken care of the house by the livestock sector. For example, if say the household is having 7 to 8 goats are there, and there is a financial emergency in the household to say for 5,000 rupees, they can sell off one goat and they get for 7 to 8,000 rupees, and then they can meet the immediate needs. Then there are other kind of vulnerabilities. There is nutritional vulnerability. When a household is rearing, say, is having 5 to 7 poultry birds, and they are giving 5 to 7 eggs per day. 2 to 3 eggs may be sold off in the market, but 2 to 3 eggs are retained in the household and they are being eaten by the children, and then it reduces the nutritional vulnerability also. So therefore, vulnerability can be seen from different perspectives, and livestock has a great role to play in addressing the vulnerabilities. Can you read out other questions, or any participants can unmute and then ask.
So one more question has come that is not related to today's presentation. Please share your experience about feed block and share some tips for starting new feed block unit.
See, while I was at Jhansi, feed block is a very important aspect when commercialization of livestock activities is being happening. Commercialization has been slow, but technology has not kept pace with the commercialization that has happened. In most in urban areas, you will see that many educated, uneducated or uneducated youth are taking up livestock as a vocation. They are, I say that they will be keeping 3 to 4 buffaloes and then family is sustained. Other way around, the buffalo who are rearing, right? What is happening is that you see that every morning or the tempo traveler would be coming loads of hay or wheat straw hay and then coming to the urban area to supply them. So therefore, if there is need for entrepreneurship for these kind of technology, we can have in the say peri-urban area about 20 to 30 kilometer range. The fleet block unit would be there, and if there is need for some entrepreneur to come up. Maybe I have seen that many technology scientists from the computer background, they have been working for say 15 to 20 years in USA, and they have come back and they are into agriculture and livestock sector, but they are not exposed to this kind of technology. So first I said there is the urea treated mobile sprayer was developed at ICAR-Central, but there is need to make it happen on an international level. I have also seen, you may have seen at the airport, the wrapping bags, we wrap the bags in polythene sheet. And there is also, similarly, we have seen the fodder would be chapped and then bale would be made and then there would be wrapping around the chapped fodder, and it will be an aerobic condition and it will make a silage. You can keep it there and then you can supply to the peri-urban areas. So these kind of entrepreneurship can be developed, but someone has to come up and then take up these technologies. Any more suggestion, questions? This transportation of dry refugees processing is the constraint. Yes, so there are bailers, but unfortunately, entrepreneurs are not coming to. When we have entrepreneur, when food can be delivered through Swiggy platform or other agencies to the doorstep, why cannot the peri-urban livestock keepers in the heart of these cities, they can be supplied these kind of ways? But someone has to come up. Someone has to see the technology, someone has to invest a little amount, or the government has to initiate this process by demonstrating this thing, and then someone will take up and then transportation of dry refugees will be taken care of by these kind of bales. And for bale, I written one story about business of baled grass. While I was at Jhansi, not this time, about say 70, 80, 90 years ago, there was a business of baled grass at Jhansi. Because in the Jhansi region, it was all a dryland region and the grass used to grow. I had written a business, the building empire on hay, where when there was a British Scottish person who had come over here, he had two factories, one at Markundi in UP and other was at Jhansi. He had established a factory to baled the grass using steam engine, which was optioned by the railway, and then these baled grasses of one mount 40 kg each were transported not to only Jhansi, not only in India, it was transported to Lahore, Pakistan, and then also in different wars. There was a mandi, there was a market for it in the Lahore, and then it was because of the business of baled grass. There is still a street named as Gepard Street in Lahore. So there is a baled grass, unfortunately, has been lost sight of, but again, we need to look into it.
Sir, I think now there are no much questions. And thank you so much, sir, for enriching our knowledge with such an informative lecture on women in agriculture. Their participation, time use and contribution, they will be really new to many participants. And the big data you shared was really, it really needs great appreciation, sir. Thank you so much, sir, once again, sir, from our whole team.
Participants to collaborate with us. We have data for each of the states, and wherever you are, please be in touch with us. We can provide the data tables. We have very few persons to write. We want excellent writers having background for their own state, and we can together make these data known to the policy makers so that enabling policies are made for men and women in livestock sector.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
sir.
Dr.
Thank you.
Ratil, for sparing your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
That's right. Okay.
Shall I close now?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir. You can log off. Thank you, everyone. Let's join back at 2:30 for the next session. The link will be shared on your WhatsApp group as well as on your email. Thank you for joining us. You may all leave the group meeting now.